Why you looking like that?
I tried.
Ooh.
I need to get my hair braided.
Huh?
I need to get my hair braided.
You need to have braided.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want daddy to do that?
You don't know how to braid.
I don't know how to braid. But I can do this though.
Sharing that he was a beloved music teacher and football coach, but just after midnight Tuesday morning, Sanders was shot and killed here at Blue Timbers Court. Amber Howard saw the frantic moments.
I was just upstairs watching TV, and all I hear was a woman like screaming, saying, "Gary, give me my baby, Gary, give me my baby." And then, of course, I'm still hearing it, and then that's when I heard like 2 gunshots. And right after that, that's when the woman was screaming, "You shot my husband, you shot my husband." I look out there, she doing CPR.
Gary Davis.
Harris County Sheriff's investigators say the Gary involved is Gary Davis, the former lover of Sanders' wife.
What would you do if the man your wife had a baby with during your separation refused to give that child back? Would you call the police? Would you send a lawyer? Marlon Sanders did what most fathers would do. He got in the car with his wife and he drove to that house to bring the baby home. He stood by the vehicle and waited. He didn't go to the door. He didn't start a confrontation. He just waited, and for that, he was shot twice and left to die in the middle of the street.
Yeah, yeah, hey, whoa, whoa, yeah, go girl, whoa.
Marlon Sanders was 36 years old, a music teacher, a choir director, a coach in the Port Arthur School District, a man who gave every piece of himself to children every single day. And on the night of May 26th, 2026, just outside Houston, Texas, his life was taken during what should have been a routine child pickup. The man accused of killing him was 38-year-old Gary Davis, the biological father of the 9-month-old baby Marlon and his wife had come to collect. This is the story of how a custody arrangement turned into a death sentence for a man who did nothing wrong.
You scared? You scared?
No.
Alright, don't be scared. I'm trying to see. You want them balls again? I don't know how they did that. Did he just roll it up into a ball? Is that what she did? Something like that. Little mama. Or did she? Let's see. I don't know. Lord help me. Because if it's how I supposed to bring it together like this. No, can't do that. Let's see. All right, first let's get the edges come last, or
The edges come last.
dang.
Just put rubber bands on it.
All right, you gotta give me a second though, like. You gotta get you together.
Ooh. Go see.
Just give me a second. Daddy go get you together. Shit. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, Mommy always did that to me.
Ooh. Oh. Look at that. Turn your head away. Ooh. But that look good, but I don't know what to do with that part. It's crazy.
You need to do the same thing on this side.
Okay, same thing on that side. All right. So, let me see. Give me a second. He said do the same thing on that side. We're gonna make sure we together. Ain't nothing else gonna be right. Them edges gonna be together, huh? Right? Little boy. Yeah, Daddy got this. Daddy got this.
What's that?
I don't know, but Daddy got it. I don't know, but Daddy got it. What I tell you? Daddy got it. Daddy got it. What I told you? I don't know what it is, but Daddy got it.
Nothing in this bottle.
I know. I need some more cologne.
Did you drink all my cologne? But we still got gummy beer.
Yeah.
Guys, look at the gummy beer.
Ooh, Chloe. That's it right there.
Look at this one.
That Jimmy Choo.
Jimmy Choo?
Yeah.
These are not into disco.
Yeah.
But them had the same sound.
Hold on. Hold on.
Who did that? Let me get this out.
Yeah.
Let me do it with cologne. Ooh, cologne.
Oh, Daddy did it. Yo, let me fix your little edges up. Let me see. Look at the camera. Okay, put that cologne down. You should have showed them that baccarat though. Ooh. You don't see that one? Ooh. Now let's see. Come on. Let me see. Yo.
What you about to do?
I'm gonna do your edges like you don't want no design in your edges. You want a design in your edges?
Mommy always.
I don't care what your mama always do.
Oh.
Let's see. Mm-hmm. Yo. Gotta go on an angle with a swoop. Swoop. I think I messed up over there. Let me see. Let me see this side. Let me see. Look at that. Look at me. Yeah, I think we done for the day. We done? You think Daddy getting better? Okay, high five. Bye, y'all.
If this is your first time here, this is Crime Trail Chronicles, where we cover stories of lives lost to domestic violence and relationship-driven crimes. If these stories matter to you, take a second and subscribe so you never miss a case. To understand how this night turned into a tragedy, you need to understand the people at the center of it and the situation that tied all of them together. Marlon Sanders was the kind of man that a community builds itself around. He wasn't loud about it. He didn't seek attention. He just showed up day after day and gave everything he had to the kids in front of him. In the Port Arthur Independent School District, Marlon was a music teacher, a choir director, and a coach. Those weren't side jobs. Those weren't stepping stones to something bigger. That was his life's work, and he treated it that way. If you've ever had a teacher who changed the way you saw yourself, you understand what Marlon meant to the students he worked with. He was the one who stayed after the bell rang, the one who learned names on the first day and never forgot them, the one who noticed when a kid was having a bad week and pulled them aside, not to lecture, but to listen. In a school system where so many young people pass through without anyone stopping to pay attention, Marlon made sure his students never felt invisible. Outside the classroom, Marlon was building a life with his wife. They were married, and for a while, things were steady. But marriages go through seasons. Some of those seasons are harder than others, and at some point, Marlon and his wife hit one of those stretches where the weight of it all became too much. They separated. Now, a separation doesn't always mean the end. Sometimes it means two people need room to breathe, room to figure out what they actually want. And that's exactly what happened here. But during that time apart, while Marlon and his wife were living separate lives, she began seeing someone else. His name was Gary Davis. Davis was 38 years old, and during the period of the separation, he and Marlon's wife had a child together, a baby boy. That single detail rewired the entire dynamic of every relationship involved, because eventually Marlon and his wife decided to try again. They reconciled. They chose each other. And when they came back together, they were now dealing with a situation that most couples never have to face. There was a child in the picture who biologically belonged to another man, a man who was still very much present, a man who wanted to be part of his son's life. And here is where you start to see what kind of person Marlon Sanders really was. He didn't fight it. He didn't try to push Gary Davis out of the picture. He didn't make it about ego or pride or territory. Marlon and his wife sat down and made a decision together. They would allow Davis to have visitation with his 9-month-old son. They believed the child deserved a relationship with his biological father. And Marlon supported that fully, even though he had every reason in the world to feel uncomfortable with it. Think about that for a second. A man agrees to share time with the person his wife was with during their separation. He agrees to let that man come in and out of their lives on a regular basis for the sake of a child that isn't biologically his. That takes something that most people only pretend to have. That takes real maturity, real selflessness, the kind of love that puts a child's well-being above every other feeling in the room. And for a while, the arrangement worked. The routine was simple. Marlon's wife, White, would drop the baby off with Davis for a visit, a few days at a time. When the visit was over, she would go back and pick the child up. No drama, no conflict, just two households doing their best to raise a child between them. But Gary Davis was carrying something that the rest of them couldn't see. Every time that baby left his house, he watched him go. Every time the child went back to a home where another man was playing the role of father, Davis had to sit with that. The woman he'd been with had chosen her husband. The son he'd fathered was being raised under someone else's roof. And no matter how many visits he got, no matter how many days he was allowed, the baby always went back. That kind of pain is real. Nobody is dismissing that. Watching your child leave is one of the hardest things a person can go through. But what separates a good parent from a dangerous one is what you do with that pain. Do you channel it into being the best father you can during the time you have? Or do you let it eat at you until it turns into something you can't control? According to what investigators would later piece together, Gary Davis had been growing more and more agitated as the weeks went on. The cooperativeness that may have existed at the beginning of the arrangement was fading. Something in him was shifting, and the people closest to the situation were starting to feel it. Then came the visit in late May 2026. A few days before the night everything fell apart, Marlon's wife had dropped the baby off with Davis for a scheduled visit. Everything seemed fine, normal handoff, no issues. But when it was time for the baby to come home, the tone changed completely. Before Marlon and his wife even got in the car to make the drive, Davis started sending text messages, and these were not the texts of a man coordinating a peaceful exchange. According to investigators, Davis was messaging Marlon's wife directly, threatening that he was not going to return the baby, a 9-month-old child, and the man who fathered him was now saying he would not give him back. For any parent, receiving a message like that is the kind of thing that stops your heart. You don't know if it's a bluff. You don't know if he's serious. You don't know if something has changed in him that makes this time different from every other time. But you go. Because that is your child, and you are not leaving without him. So Marlon and his wife got in the car. They drove to Blue Timbers Court, a residential street near Tidwell Road, just outside Houston. They had no way of knowing what was waiting for them when they got there.
Screaming, saying, "Gary, give me my baby, Gary, give me my baby." And then, of course, I'm still hearing it. And that's when I heard like 2 gunshots.
The drive from Port Arthur to Blue Timbers Court is not a short one. That gave Marlon and his wife time to sit with what was happening, time to read those messages again, time to think about what kind of situation they were about to walk into. Davis had made it clear through his texts. He was not planning to cooperate. He was not planning to hand the baby over peacefully. Whether he meant every word or was trying to provoke a reaction, the message was the same. That child was not coming home without a fight. Now, most people in that situation would be terrified, and they probably were. But they went anyway. Because when someone tells you they are keeping your child, every other fear becomes secondary. You don't sit at home and hope it works out. You go get your baby. What makes this even more painful is how Marlon handled himself when they arrived. He didn't storm up to the front door. He didn't pound on it. He didn't shout threats or try to escalate the situation in any way. Marlon stayed by the car. He let his wife handle the exchange because she was the one who had the existing relationship with Davis. She was the one Davis would communicate with. Marlon understood his role in that moment, and he played it exactly right. His wife walked up to the house, alone, and here's where the tension thickens. The baby was not brought to the door by Gary Davis himself. It was Davis's mother who carried the 9-month-old outside and handed him over. Davis stayed inside the house. He did not come to the door. He did not say goodbye to his son. He stayed back, out of sight, while his mother handled the handoff. On the surface, that might seem like a good sign. Maybe he calmed down. Maybe the threats were empty. Maybe this was going to be just another pickup after all. But then Davis called out from inside the house. He wanted to know who his ex was outside with. She didn't answer him. That silence changed everything. Marlon's wife took the baby from Davis's mother, turned around, and started walking back toward the car where Marlon was waiting. The baby was in her arms. The exchange was done. In a matter of seconds, they would have been in the vehicle and driving away. This entire nightmare would have been over. But Gary Davis did not let them leave. What happened next took less than 30 seconds, and in those 30 seconds, a family was destroyed. As Marlon's wife walked away from the house carrying the baby, Gary Davis came through the door behind her. He was not empty-handed. He was carrying a firearm. He didn't hesitate. He didn't stop on the porch. He didn't say a word to the woman holding his son. Davis moved past her, past his own mother, and went straight for Marlon. Marlon was still standing near the vehicle. He had not moved from that spot the entire time. He hadn't approached the house. He hadn't spoken to Davis. He was simply standing there, waiting for his wife and the baby to come back so they could go home. Davis ran toward him, and then he fired twice. Both shots hit Marlon. He collapsed right there in the middle of the roadway, next to the car he had driven to pick up a child that wasn't even biologically his. A child he had chosen to love anyway, a child whose safety he had put above his own comfort, his own pride, his own life. Marlon Sanders went down, and he did not get back up. His wife was feet away. The 9-month-old baby was in her arms. She had just watched her husband get shot by the father of her child on a quiet residential street in the middle of the night. The screaming, the panic, the sheer horror of what had just happened, happening so fast that her body probably couldn't even process it. And Gary Davis? He didn't check on his son. He didn't look at the woman he once had a relationship with. He didn't drop the weapon or fall to his knees or show a single sign of what he had just done registering in his mind. He ran. Davis got into another vehicle, and he fled Blue Timbers Court. He left Marlon bleeding in the street. He left his own child at a crime scene. He left the mother of his son standing there with a baby in one arm and a phone in the other, trying to call for help. Neighbors had heard the gunshots. In a neighborhood like that, 2 shots in the middle of the night cut through every wall and window on the block. People looked out. People called 911. The first deputies from the Harris County Sheriff's Office arrived within minutes. When they got to Blue Timbers Court, the scene told the story before anyone had to say a word. Marlon Sanders, 36 years old, was lying on the pavement next to the vehicle. He was bleeding heavily from his wounds. Paramedics were called immediately. They loaded Marlon into an ambulance and rushed him to the nearest hospital. Doctors and nurses worked on him. They did what they could, but the damage was too severe. Marlon Sanders was pronounced dead at the hospital. The man who had spent his entire adult life nurturing other people's children was gone. Taken from this world because he stood next to a car and waited for a baby to come home. Back at the scene, Marlon's wife was in shock. The baby was unharmed, physically at least. Deputies began securing the area, collecting evidence, speaking to witnesses who had seen or heard what happened. And then something happened that tells you everything you need to know about the kind of person Gary Davis is. He started calling. After fleeing the scene of a murder he had just committed, after leaving his own son crying at a crime scene, after watching a man bleed out on the pavement, Gary Davis picked up his phone and started calling his ex. Not once, multiple times, call after call after call. Maybe he wanted to explain himself. Maybe he wanted to know if the baby was okay. Maybe he wanted to threaten her into silence. Nobody knows exactly what he was going to say because when Marlon's wife finally answered one of those calls and handed the phone to a Harris County deputy standing right next to her, Davis heard the voice on the other end and hung up immediately. He knew. The moment he heard a law enforcement officer on the line, he knew the game was over. But even that didn't stop him from trying. Davis started calling again, this time from different phone numbers, blocked numbers, new numbers, anything he could use to get through. Each time the calls were logged, each time the evidence against him grew. A man who had just killed another human being, and instead of turning himself in, instead of accepting what he had done, he was making phone calls from the shadows trying to reach the one person who had just watched him commit murder. Meanwhile, Marlon Sanders was lying in a hospital, already gone. His wife was standing on a street she had never been to before tonight, holding a baby surrounded by deputies and crime scene tape, trying to understand how a child pickup had turned into the worst night of her life. The 9-month-old baby boy would never remember this night. He would never remember the sound of those gunshots. He would never remember being held by his mother while his stepfather lay dying a few feet away. But one day, someone is going to have to explain to him what happened. Someone is going to have to tell that boy why the man who was willing to love him like his own is not here anymore. And that conversation is going to be one of the hardest things anyone in that family will ever have to do. Gary Davis may have fled Blue Timbers Court that night, but he left a trail behind him that no amount of running could erase. Investigators with the Harris County Sheriff's Office began piecing the case together almost immediately. The witnesses on the scene had seen exactly what happened. Marlon's wife, despite being in a state of shock, was able to give deputies a clear account of the events leading up to the shooting. She told them about the threatening text messages Davis had sent before they arrived. She told them about the handoff, about Davis's mother bringing the baby outside, about Davis calling out from inside the house asking who was with her. She told them how he came through the door with a gun and went straight for Marlon without a single word of warning. The text messages alone were a mountain of evidence. Investigators pulled the messages from Marlon's wife's phone and could see in Davis's own words the threats he had made about not returning the child. Those messages established something critical for the case. The manhunt for Gary Davis did not last long. Investigators tracked him down, and he was taken into custody. He was charged with murder for the shooting death of Marlon Sanders. When Davis was brought before the court, prosecutors made their position clear. They asked the judge to hold him without bond. Their argument was straightforward. A man had been gunned down in the street during a child custody exchange. The shooter had fled the scene. He had attempted to contact the key witness multiple times after the killing. He had used multiple phone numbers to try to get through when his original number was blocked. He was a flight risk and a danger to the community, particularly to the mother of his child, who was also the primary witness against him. The court agreed. Davis was denied bond. As of May 28, 2026, just 2 days after the murder, Gary Davis was sitting in the Harris County Jail awaiting his next court appearance. The legal process is still in its early stages, and a trial date has not yet been set. There are no winners in this story. There is only a baby who will one day have to learn the truth about the night his biological father murdered the man who was willing to raise him as his own. Rest in peace, Marlon Sanders. If this story moved you, or if you believe these cases deserve to be told, subscribe to Crime Trail Chronicles. Every case we cover is a life that mattered, and every subscription helps us make sure these stories are never forgotten. Hit that subscribe button, and we will see you on the next one.
I hadn't seen many individuals come into Marlon's life or into his space with a negative or angry attitude or mentality. He's always been someone that I call a big teddy bear, someone you can lean on, a confidant.
His family released a statement on Facebook asking for privacy and for the community. Keep them in your prayers.